MNN.
Welcome to Faith and Fitness TV broadcast, The McKenzie Project. I am your host, Patricia McKenzie, also known as Takesha. Well, today on my program, I have with me a young man who is a speaker and author. He's published 6 books. His newest book is called Come Back Swinging. And his name is Darrell Bennett. Darrell Bennett, welcome to Faith and Fitness TV broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Project.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, where do we start? You are...
Wherever you want to start. It's your show.
At the very beginning.
Yes.
You are a published author.
Yes.
I read your book.
Mm-hmm.
And go back to when you first started writing, and the first time you published was self-publishing?
Yes, the first book that I did was self-published.
This one?
Yes. I wrote that at 18 years old, called Daring to Be Different.
Okay.
25 tips for life and success.
Okay.
Very short snippets on life and how one can begin to kind of take ownership of their life and move into another level of success. Now, again, the funny thing is, what does an 18-year-old know about success? But, I wrote it at a dark place, and it's a whole lesson in that, Patricia, about how great things are often made in dark places. I was a freshman at Morehouse. It was the end of my summer for my freshman year going into my senior year, and all of my friends had great internships, and I didn't get any internship. And I went home. Some of my friends went to D.C., some of my friends went, across the country. Some of them went overseas for internships, and I was going home, and I had nothing to do. And so I decided to take that time, and instead of waiting for a yes, I created a yes. And I wrote this book. It came out of a place of rejection. And it was kind of like tongue-in-cheek that I said, 25 tips for a life of success, And when the irony is, the last will be first and the first will be last, I leave for the summer, no internship. I come back, and people have a few stories, but I come back with a book. People were like,
that's
oh
amazing.
My gosh. That was the beginning of something huge for me. That was the beginning of me really starting to speak publicly on a different platform, of me beginning to see business in a different way. And it was really the start of my entrepreneurial career.
Well, I'm going to go back because that's really great.
Yeah,
but I'm
take
gonna
it back.
I'm going to go back to your childhood.
Okay.
We're going to touch on some subjects that you talk about and you've triumphed over in your book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And only the God of the universe could have brought you through that to a place of success.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Go back to when you were a child.
Yes.
Things that occurred in your life. Your mom was a praying woman. Your
Absolutely.
Mom, she is a praying woman.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about your childhood.
So this chair is heavy because my mom is sitting here, my grandmother is sitting here, my father's sitting here, the elders are sitting here, people who fought for me to be able to be in this seat are here. So I want to start by giving honor and acknowledgement to the people that God has put in my life to nurture me and develop me. We don't see further than others because of our own strength, but because we stand on the shoulders of others.
So many.
And my mother, from the time I was young, my mother was always
younger.
Younger.
You said young.
Younger. My mother was always instilling in me the power of vision and calling.
Okay, stop right there for a second. to me a little bit about vision and calling, because they're two different things.
They are two different things.
So just
Patricia.
quickly, vision.
Vision.
Yeah.
Sight is the ability to see what is.
Mm-hmm.
Vision is the capacity to see what could be.
Ah, I love it.
That's Mama.
Okay.
Mama was telling me I was going to get a full scholarship. I knew, Patricia, I knew how to spell scholarship at 3 years old.
Come on now.
And my mother at that point hadn't even graduated from college. That's vision.
Yes.
She saw at an early age what I could be, even though she had not gotten there.
And she was calling those things which are not as though they were.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
And it happened.
It did happen. It did
the
happen.
power of our words.
Absolutely. And what we speak.
Yes.
And then calling. My mother from an early age would tell me, God has his hand on your life. Not in this egotistical, bombastic way, but in this sense of you are not your own. Your life is not your own. She would remind me that I almost died as an infant. I mean, they didn't even know what the illness was. Now, mind you, I was born in Baltimore. This is where I spent my early years. The best hospital in the country, perhaps, is Johns Hopkins.
Right.
They had specialists come and see me. They had people from around the country fly in and see. Nobody knew what happened. And as mysteriously as I fell ill at, I think, like 2 or 3 months and almost died, just got better. My mom said she came. I've never shared this story publicly. She said that when I was 2 years old, she brought me back to the hospital, and some people were saying, that's proof that there's a God. Nobody knew. They thought even if I would make it through, I would be developmentally challenged. I would never catch up with my peers. It was so many things that they spoke over my life. And my mother would remind me that it was something that held me through that period. And that something was beyond this world.
Yes, that's God. And your mom is a believer in Christ Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
So she must have prayed you through. And
yes.
One thing I know about when God has his hand on your life, there's a purpose, there's a destiny for you to go to. There's a reason why he put us on the planet.
Yes.
And once you find out what your purpose is, whether you're 2, 3, 4, 5, or 95.
Yes.
You know, you find that there is a fulfillment in finding what your purpose is.
Absolutely.
And to walk out your destiny and then say, this is what I was put on the planet to do.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
It's a game changer. One of the books that I wrote right before this one released this year also is called, that's not actually up here, but it's available through Amazon and other bookstores, and it's called Leadership as Self-Discovery, Finding Your Gifts, Your Passions, and Ultimately Your Purpose.
See, that book should have been up here.
Yeah, so I walk people through,
yes.
you know, knowing that, you know, your skill is what you learned in somebody's school, and we don't downplay that, but your gift is what was put in you from before the foundation of the world.
Yes.
And when you want to understand your purpose, you know, people always say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. When the product, you know, everybody's been given something. It looks nice. But you don't know what in the world does this thing do. You want to know the purpose for a product? You look at its features, its distinguishing features. So the same thing is with us. We have been created and wonderfully, fearfully made. And if you want to know what your purpose is, what makes you different. And I knew at an early age, I had a gift for communication. Had a way with words. And that unlocked in me a level of confidence because I couldn't, look, you dance, but just I cannot dance. I don't sing well. I tried playing an instrument. I am not saying this for funny effect. The teacher asked me to quit.
Oh my gosh.
This is what he said. He said, a lot of you guys, it's elementary school. He said, it's not just that you're off key, but you're loud and you're throwing everybody else off. So early on, I kind of stumbled on what I could do. And
what you couldn't do.
From what I couldn't do.
Okay.
That's what led me. But I knew when it was pep rally time, pass Darrell the mic. You know, I would sit around in the classroom and other people would come up with these great ideas. We'd be in the little group sessions and they say, Darrell, but you got to get in front of the class and speak. Right. So I always tell people, young, old, middle, whatever, I tell people, if you want to begin to discover your purpose, pay attention to what you do differently that's difficult for others.
And also where your passion lies.
Yes.
Because if you will do something, and I've done this as a dancer choreographer, work for no money.
Yes.
Because of my love for the dance, the art of dance. They said, you didn't get paid for that? No, I just wanted to minister. I just wanted to express. Yes. And it's a passion.
It's a passion.
It's a passion that goes with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you are literally, I've heard it broken down like this. The scripture, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of that which is not seen. Mm. That passion, the fact that you're doing it without working, that because you're seeing it. So let me give you an instance. When I was younger, I'd set up a podium in my room. I had this big chest.
Oh my goodness.
I would set it up like a podium. It's kind of crazy looking back. I had a little flag in the back behind me, but the evidence of what I could not see, which was the crowds and the cameras and the television interviews, the evidence of what I could not see was my faith in action through the gift of speaking.
And that was your vision, and you were visualizing it. Basically, you were visualizing what you were going to do in the future. Yes. And you were manifesting it through whatever age you were.
Not even realizing it.
Not even realizing. That's how powerful our God is.
That is how powerful. And I said to you right before we came on here, I didn't realize I've been featured on television before, but this is my first television interview.
And this will not be his last.
And well, thank you for saying that. And can I tell you, I can remember being 10, 12 years old, practicing.
To be on television.
So it's 20 years. But I want people to know, no matter, when there are things that are hitting on the inside of us, we've got to fight through to get to. You'll get there if you faint not.
Exactly.
So I'm a testimony and a testament to the fact that if you have resilience, you can push your way through.
Amen. Well, go back to your relationship with your dad and what happened to you, because we want to touch on some subjects that other people need to hear, so they'll go, oh, I'm not the only one that's been through this, and this is not, I'm not the only one in the world, and there is hope for me because there is deliverance.
Oh, there's absolutely deliverance.
Talk to me about your relationship with your father and what you saw and what you...
Yeah, so I share a lot of this. So I'll start by saying, come back swinging.
Come back swinging.
It was, as I take a deep breath, there were a lot of things I did not know how to share. I didn't know what to share, and I spent some deep time and even working with other people, my pastor, my mother, close friends, even what to share. It was 400 pages. This is only 200 pages.
Honey, so this is 262 pages.
Okay.
He said 400.
It was a whole, literally, because there were things my goal is not to embarrass people. Right. It's not a tell-all. This is not gossipy, but I wanted to minister to people.
It's your testimony.
At a young age, it's my testimony.
It's
a piece of it.
Right.
And at a young age, the wheat and the tares were growing up together. And I grew up a praying mother. Yeah. I grew up with a solid foundation in the church. I grew up with being instilled with certain values. And then there was this other part of my childhood where there were doors that were being opened, and I was being exposed to things that nobody really should be exposed to, maybe ever, but certainly not at early ages.
I want you to talk to that child. Ha, ha, glory to your name, Jesus. Yes. For your glory, God, for your glory, Father. Yes. I know this is television, but this is the Faith and Fitness TV broadcast, the McKenzie Project, and the Holy Ghost is the director of my program in the name of Jesus. So if y'all watching it, y'all know what I was talking about. That's the Holy Ghost. Have your way, Jesus.
That's right. Hallelujah.
Talk to somebody that might have been in the situation that you found yourself in, and minister to them. Look in that camera.
I want you to know, first and foremost,
Jesus,
you're not alone. While we are exposed to certain things at early ages, I can't really say why. I don't know if there's ever really an answer for it. But what I do want you to know is that there will come purpose in your pain. I'm not here to tell you if you think good thoughts, the thing is going to go away, and that if you say Jesus 3 times and turn around and sing a song, that it's going to disappear, because I would be less than genuine to say that. But what I will tell you is, I can tell you from personal experience that there is hope. And I also want to say, when there are certain things that are opened up in your life at an early age, you have a responsibility two things. One, seek help. It's okay. And that's part of the message of this book. I do share that I was introduced to sexual situations at a very early age, and unfortunately, that's not a unique story. Unfortunately, that's not an unprecedented story. I think what is unprecedented is that the outgrowth of it didn't really manifest until I graduated from Harvard Law School, and people wondered, okay, well, how the heck is he in federal prison? And I did not choose to seek help for things that I was ashamed of and embarrassed about. I think sometimes what happens is in our hearts and in our minds, we think we can deal with it. You know, they say that the frog, if you introduce it to heat suddenly, it jumps out of the pan. But if you do it slowly, it'll stay in the pan and it'll burn itself to death. And that's what my life had become in some instances, because I did not seek help. I did not choose to say, look, I am struggling and I'm suffering. And instead, I used outward success to mask inner insecurities. And I also want to speak to, if I can, to society, that, you know, we have this way of looking at people outwardly. You know, there's an old scripture that says that man looks at the outward appearance, but God searches the heart. And oftentimes it's been talked about from the perspective of, well, you know, it might be something ugly going on in your life, but, you know, God sees the best in you. But I want to talk about it from a different end, where people see the outward greatness, but they refuse and dismiss the inner troubles. And I talk about in the book that there were times in elementary school where I was caught acting out sexually. I think if I was dibbling and dabbling in drugs, or even, you know, I don't know, fighting, it would have immediately been reported to my mother, and I may have even been suspended. But I think because it was so taboo, nobody really wanted to talk about it. And so it was not shared. And so, and that was just a microcosm and a small piece of, even as I got older, people tend to see this. So,
because they can't really see your inside.
They can't see the inside, and sometimes we don't even want to see. Right. Because what the heck can you be going through? You're doing all of these great things, and you've got this wonderful voice that's being used, and you're writing books, and you're going to these great schools, and you know. So when I spoke, you know, I've been a public speaker for a long time. I didn't necessarily speak on the specific struggles that I was having, but my message was never follow me because I'm a great person. It was never a moralist message. It was always about, no matter what you've gone through, you can fight your way out. People did not realize I was talking myself through.
But that was you were like your own therapist.
It's the comedian where they say they have the deepest pain. And you think because they're laughing and they're leading you to a laugh, that somehow it's coming from a funny place. Great things are often born in dark, deep, isolated places. Pain. Trauma. Yes. Hurt. Yes. Because how can I give you what I never had? How can I tell you about what it's like to be hopeless if I don't know what it's like to lose hope? You know, I was just talking to myself. You know, we just talking now. I was just talking to myself earlier this week that I was giving a broadcast on Facebook, and so I said, that was so powerful. I said, I was talking to me. You just happened to be on it.
That's it.
Because sometimes we've got to talk ourselves out of it.
Through it. Because then you can come to somebody else and say, you know what? I might not be where you are, but I've been through this.
Yes.
And this is how I got through this.
This is how I got through this.
And this is how I had to talk my way. Whether you have to go to the therapist, whether you have to go to God, whether you have to go to pastor, whoever you have to get yourself through that, so that when you run into somebody who is in the same or similar situation, circumstance, you can say, I have not just empathy, but it's like, I know where you at.
I know where you're at.
And this is what helped me.
Look. When people say, I want the passion that you speak with, I say, no, you don't.
because they
You
don't
don't know what it costs.
Come on now.
Because when I go into a room, I can speak to professors, and I can speak to people who are maybe don't even have a dime in their pocket. In one day, I'm going to tell you, Patricia, in one day, I went into Rikers Island and did this was last month, a whole bunch of seminars. Right? 10 different seminars in one day. We're going from housing unit to housing unit. We're talking about gang units and there was some place where, they're veterans and somewhere they were high security in one day. And then at the end of the day, I'm at Harvard Club speaking to a group of prosecutors. And people say, I want that versatility. No, you don't.
They don't want.
Because it was born in, I can't talk about, getting back up if I didn't fall and I didn't lose it all. And if everything wasn't poured out of me. So, envy's a crazy thing. Because when people say that, I'm like, no, you don't. And this goes back to that child or adult who finds himself in a dark place, that we serve a God who's the master of flipping scripts.
Oh, yes.
He will turn it, what you meant for bad.
That quick. God will turn it
God
around
will
for you.
switch the whole thing around. So we don't glorify negativity,
Right.
and God doesn't necessarily put us in the negative space. But what he will do is take poor choices. He'll take things that were done to you. He'll take tragedy. He'll take catastrophe. He'll take crisis. He'll take frustration and hurt and pain, and he will turn it to now minister to other people.
Absolutely. Let me stop you there because I want to go a little bit further down the
Sure.
road. I think we're going to do part 2, show 2. Take us to when the feds came.
Oh gosh.
Y'all got to get the book.
You got to get the book.
Get the book. We're not going to tell you everything.
No.
So we're just going to bits and pieces.
Little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Amazon, tell them where to get the book.
Oh, you can get it on DarrellBennett.com and Amazon.com.
Great.
Spelled just like my name, DarrellBennett.com.
Okay.
And you can also Google Come Back Swinging. So
Yes.
it was...
The feds.
Yes, it was a week before I took the bar exam.
I remember.
Actually, 5 days before I took the bar exam. And I hear this banging on my door. I'm living in Harlem. So
Right.
I'm like, who is at my door at 5 in the morning? Who is it? I stumbled out of the room. I hear, police. I'm thinking,
They got the wrong department.
yes, and if it's the right one, they're looking for somebody who's not in here. I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. I was in the height of delusion. And, I get into this much more in the book as I go step by step through. I open the doors. And this is what I said. I said it took me, 3 minutes to hear the banging, to stumble out of my room, stagger across the living room, and then make my way to the door. 3 minutes to open that door. And it took me almost 6 to 7 years to close it.
Whoa.
I'm still closing it.
Whoa.
It's deep. I'm still closing it.
Whoa.
That turned everything around. And you want to talk about compartmentalizing. I took the bar later this happened on a Thursday.
Right.
I took the bar Monday it was either Monday and Tuesday or Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. I took the next week and passed it. And I remember when everything came crashing down much later, about a year or so later, and the one of the officers that was supervising my case, he comes to me and he says, "You actually passed the bar after that." Wow. That was all he said, because but see, I have this ability, Patricia. This is one thing about me. I have this ability to shut out everything going on around me and focus.
That's good. That's good.
It is super good, but it could also be super bad, because then it's an inability to deal. People talk about dismissing feelings. Oh, I know how to dismiss feelings. Because I have this ability to, okay, so you feel this way, shut that off. We've got a job to do. The eye on the prize, and so it can be very good. It could also be very detrimental. I still think in my life it's manifested more as good than not. But I talk about in the book that juxtaposition. The qualities, they call it in mythology the tragic flaw. The thing that can make you great, but it can also create your demise. Exactly. And so many times what I find is those qualities live in the same space. the highs and the lows aren't often so far apart, and the qualities that bring them are pretty often the same things.
Wow. Well, I know that we're going to have to kind of close it out.
Okay.
But we're going to do part 2.
Okay.
I think we have enough time to do part 2.
Okay.
Amen. But Darrell Bennett, tell them where they can get the book or books.
They're all available on Amazon.
But could you give them your...
Yes, and DarrellBennett.com. That's DarrellBennett. DarrellBennett.com. And there's 6 books: The Power to Think While Go in Order, Daring to Be Different, 25 Tips for Life and Success, The Power to Think, The Will to Act, all about getting up. I wrote this right after law school. 3 books which are not here, which are The Ultimate College Admissions Strategy Guide, The Ultimate Law School Admissions Strategy Guide, where I share some wisdom on how to do those things, as well as Leadership as Self-Discovery, the key to finding your gifts, your passions, and ultimately your purpose. And last but not least, the one that I lay my whole heart out in, Come Back Swinging, a true story of resilience against all odds.
Absolutely. Well, Darrell Bennett, I want to thank you. This is only part 1, y'all. We're going to get ready to do part 2 in a minute. He ain't going nowhere. Amen.
Thank you.
So
and that's what
I want to pick up from after the feds, and I want to go to when it was jail to prison. I like the way you broke down the difference between jail and prison. We're going to do for part 2, so you'll have to wait. Anyway, this is... Thank you, Darrell Bennett. We're coming back for part 2. This is Patricia McKenzie, Faith and Fitness TV broadcast, The McKenzie Project. And this is my guest, speaker and author, Darrell Bennett.
Yes, thank you.
Self-published, has his own publishing company. So if any of you are out there that have some manuscripts and books that you want published, you can get in touch with Darrell.
Yes, you can.
Bennett. Okay? So again, thank you again for watching Faith and Fitness TV broadcast, The McKenzie Project. Patricia McKenzie again. Thank you again, Darrell Bennett.
Thank you.
Being a guest on the show.
My pleasure.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And I see God doing some great things for you in the future. And I believe that your book is going to bring such deliverance and healing and salvation and whatever else God sees fit to do. You know, and that He would continue to open many more doors for you to go forth in the world, not just in this country, but in the world.
Speak it.
To speak. I'm calling those things which are not as though they were.
That's right.
Hey, you know, it'd be like, you in China, I'm coming.
That's what I'm
saying. You in Japan, I'm coming. It'd be like, that's Brianna's mother. Anyway.
No, that's right, yes.
So again, thank you for watching Faith and Fitness TV broadcast, The McKenzie Project. We are on the air every Saturday at 4 p.m. We're on Spectrum, which used to be Time Warner. 31. We're on channel 1995. We're on Verizon Fios. I think it's 81 or 32. And we're on www.mnn.org every Saturday at 4 p.m. And you can go to channel 1 on that. So thank you again, Darrell.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who are watching Faith and Fitness TV broadcast. Please watch the show. You know, share the show. Go to my Facebook Live, my timeline where I do Facebook Lives. The Patricia.